Welcome to Difference Talks. Today's guest, Teri Pruitt. Phenomenal background on Broadway as well as in films. She's been involved with Jekyll and Hyde, Lennon, Fosse, Wicked, Lion King, and more. She's going to talk to us today about connecting what we learn in the theater with business and what are the things that can help us personally and professionally. So, Teri Pruitt, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I'm going to have a few questions for you.
I began my theater career in junior high and just sort of got bit by the theater bug. I worked for a bus and truck touring company, not only in the costume shop, but on the bus. Um, and then I worked in DC, Baltimore. And then I decided if I was going to do this for a living, I needed to go somewhere where I was going to be paid more of a living wage. I was getting a living wage, but more of one. And by September of 98, I was working full time on multiple Broadway shows.
Here's a question I'm very, very interested in. And our book is all about differentiation, Terry. Wicked is an incredible success story.
Mhm.
20 years, 2 decades, you've been there. What is the differentiation that has allowed Wicked to withstand the competition out there? Because there are scores and scores of musicals and plays that have come and gone, yet
Mhm.
Wicked is there. What is Wicked's differentiation?
Well, first of all, from a theatrical point of view, it is a beautiful, well-crafted piece of theater. It is also about two strong women, which is at the time not as prevalent on Broadway or anywhere really. And also it has a timeless quality to it. It is not of, the early 2000s. It is of the 1980s. It is of the, 2050s, because we each have those people in our lives that are Glenda, that are the popular, beautiful, handsome homecoming king or queen, and we feel like the ugly duckling that can do nothing right. We each have moments in our lives that we are both of those things, but I think most of us can identify with Elphaba because she is us. We are always the ones standing in the corner wondering if anybody's gonna talk to us. Or you face plant and everyone laughs at you, and there's this handsome, beautiful, like, seemingly effortless, effervescent human that you aspire to be and can't quite ever get there. And when you learn her story, you realize that there's some effort there and there's some not great things there in her background as well. And it is for all of us, and we see ourselves in it.
Wicked is, as you said, it's about two very strong women.
Mhm.
There isn't the hero male and then the femme fatale. It is two strong women, and it set itself apart. One thing you're doing more and more is working with businesses or talking business with entrepreneurs, corporate folks to help explain the theater, because in many cases that can help them with performance, help
Mhm.
them with getting more out of their people. Share what your insights are, because you live in this powder keg of an environment where the show goes on. It's virtually every night. Somebody's going to be sick. Somebody's replacing someone else. There's going to be a wardrobe problem. The lights didn't go on right. The weather is terrible. Share with us how the business person can learn from the theatric experience.
In any production, you have a very clear hierarchy. There is a production stage manager, there's department heads, and then there are crew. And under the production stage manager, they're rehearsing and putting in the actors. Department heads and the crew are supporting all of that. If there is a problem, and actually last night at the show, there was a problem, a wardrobe problem, and the dresser dealing with it had to make an immediate decision, made it, and then we discuss whether it may or may not have been the right decision. It was an effective decision, but it may not have been the right decision. It was about a shoe, so the show would have gone on. But there are times when the show doesn't go on because the problem is such that you have to bring in the show curtain and you have to stop the show. And that's a decision that the stage managers make based on the information that they're getting from those of us that are in the trenches and the actors. Most of the time, our problems are seamlessly solved without stopping the show. Sometimes they're seamlessly solved without stopping the show, but it's obvious that something's happened. Like, there's a bed in the classroom and 4 guys in black walk on stage and undo the scenery and push it off. The audience is probably going, that wasn't supposed to happen. But the thing is, the audience lives for those moments. Those are the ones that they post on social media. I was there the night that. So it's a clear hierarchy. It is a clear trust in each other. One of the fun facts that I like to share with corporate people is Wicked has been running over 22 years. Lightning has been, it's approaching 28. Chicago is approaching 30. In all of those, we are doing 8 shows a week, 52 weeks a year, maintaining product consistency, product continuity, with never once having the same group of people doing it. Cast, crew, orchestra.
That's amazing because we live in a world where turnover is like, oh my gosh, we've had a change. How can we survive? And I love this. Number one, there's a clear hierarchy, so we know who's in charge, as opposed to, I don't know, is it your job, my job? I don't know. So that's one thing that's very clear that you talked about. Another that's very clear is if there's a problem, and there will be, you make a decision, and in many cases, you just go with it. You've got to go with it. You don't sit around, you don't get paralyzed. You send the person out, and yes, maybe it's a different pair of shoes, but you send the person out. Later, you kind of recap after the show whether that was the right way or maybe there was another way to do it. And then I think another thing that you just talked about that's really important for all of us is the idea of imperfection, dealing with something that isn't perfect. And is that a slap in our faces? Is it something to be ashamed of? Or is it something we just have to wear and we have to realize and we have to deal with? What else would you add to what I just shared?
I think we do have to just deal with it. I think the business overlap is just press send. You do all the work that you can do, but it's never, ever going to be perfection. And even if it is absolute perfection, there's going to be somebody that has seen it that goes, yeah, that's not great. I don't like it. That's ugly. So you can't please all the people all the time. What you can do is do the work with integrity and consistency and pride and trust that the people around you are working at that same level and that nobody wants to fail, even though they made a decision that you wouldn't have made. Maybe they don't have the same amount of training. Maybe they have different training. Maybe you can learn because you would never have thought of that. And how cool is their solution, even if it wasn't yours? Trusting and learning from the people around you.
I think it's very, very interesting. You've used trust many, many times.
Mhm.
And in business, that's a huge, huge topic. All right, you're dealing with a completely different group of people to some extent almost every day and every night. And yet, you talk of trust. How is that best built so that you can help us in business?
Well, part of it is the nature of what we do. We come into a situation where we have to have a base level of trust that we all belong there and
Mhm,
we all know our jobs. If you walked backstage, Barry, and I was training you,
mhm.
I would assume that you have a baseline knowledge, that you want to succeed, and that between me training you and you paying attention, that you will then, if I call out sick or something happens, that you can step into my shoes. And my actors that I deal with, notice I say my actors, not the actors, my actors trust you because they've seen you learn it. There is an automatic base level of trust with each other. And as you get to know each other, you trust more and more and more because you see their skill set, you see their passion, you see their love, you see their knowledge, you see their problem solving skills, and you feel the love, to quote Lion King, you know? So it is about not assuming somebody's there for my job, not assuming that they're setting me up to fail. We are all setting each other up to succeed to the best of our abilities. My job is to get my actors safe, happy, healthy, and dressed onto the stage so they can tell the story that affects the 2,000 people that come and see us every performance. That's my part of the storytelling. So that's how you build trust, is start with trust.
When we come back from break, we're going to hear a few stories from you, Terry, if you could share a few stories.
Absolutely.
I'd like to emphasize something here. It starts with trust, as you said, and the idea of trusting those you're working with and not looking at your job as primarily finding a way to keep your job. Your job is to do something great. And I think that fits for all of us. So we'll be right back on Difference Talks.
Difference Talks is a LaBeouf production. Our focus is differentiation, and we believe it's more important than ever to differentiate your brand and experience. Contact us at labeouf.com for a conversation. We'd love to connect with you.
We are back with Teri Pruitt. She's giving us some fascinating insights about life on Broadway, also maybe films, Shakespearean theater as well. Terry, can you share with our audience some interesting tidbits, some behind the scenes things that some of us would never have guessed or might find of interest? That, we're the ones in the audience and you're the ones seeing all these things behind the curtain.
So back in the day when I was working at the Shakespeare Theater in Washington, D.C., we would have a lot of dignitaries come and see the show, and we would have Secret Service come back and tour. Um, and we loved when they came back because, again, talk about opposite worlds. You have guys walking around with guns in their jackets, and Axel the Bomb sniffing dog, which we were more interested in petting.
Uh,
Um, and the interesting thing, the Secret Service couldn't figure our backs. We had to give them directions all the time to
uh,
get to the front of house and whatever. When I was working there, I called it, because I didn't know who was actually doing it, the League of Washington Rich Lawyers, and they would buy out a performance. And they would invite Supreme Court justices to come and do walk-ons. So I had the extraordinary privilege of dressing Ruth Bader Ginsburg as a troll in Peer Gynt.
Mm.
And then when we were doing Henry IV, the next season, she came in and she had been interviewed previously and misquoted, saying that she didn't believe in the Constitution. And so she ad-libbed Shakespeare, and the line was, "Let's kill all the lawyers,"
Ah.
was the Shakespeare line, and she added, "and reporters too." Okay, glad you're stepping up to the English playwright. And then I also got to work with Justice O'Connor, Sandra Day O'Connor. And the thing about that was the privilege of sitting, because we had rehearsal, so we were with them all day long, and getting to sit across from Justice Rehnquist and talking to them about their decisions, about how they became what they became. But the button of the Justice O'Connor story is like a month after she had been at the Shakespeare Theater, I was at our offices, which happened to be behind the Supreme Court building at the time. And I'd done what I needed to do, and I was walking back to the theater, which as a non-New Yorker at the time was like a really long walk. Now it's like, nah, it's a Tuesday. Anyway, Justice O'Connor and her retinue of people came out of, I'm going to call it the Supreme Court stage door, because I don't know what they actually call it. This is all pre 9/11, also important to the story. She sees me. I'm in a sweatshirt and a backpack and jeans. I didn't look homeless or, housing challenged, but I didn't look like somebody she should know. And she's like, "Hey, Teri." And I'm like, "Oh, Justice O'Connor, how are you?" Her staff behind her are losing their mind. And she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I just had to go to the office. I'm headed back to the theater." And she's like, "Oh, do you want a ride?"
Mm.
Now her staff, gets smart, is pulling shoes off to talk on their phones. Who is this person? She knows her, but we don't. Oh my God, who is this person? And that would be incredible. And she's like, "Okay," and gestured to the driver. And she's like, "Have her get in." The staff is now like, "What do we do?" So I get in. She does whatever she does with her paralegals and her staff. Security is flipped out. And I got in the car. She got in the car. The door closes. And "Justice O'Connor, thank you so much for this ride. Do you realize your staff is now freaked out?" And she looked at me square in the eyes and she's like, "Great, isn't it? Justice O'Connor." And she's like, "Call me Sandra." And I'm like, "Absolutely not, ma'am. Absolutely not. I will call you Justice Sandra, but absolutely not, ma'am. You are one of the reasons why I have autonomy." And so they're just human, but the privilege of meeting them was just, and the fact that she giggled, like, "It's good to
Mhm.
be the king," to quote Mel Brooks, Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great to, play with my staff and watch them lose their minds.
I think what also is wonderful is in both cases, those great women
Mm,
were able to not take themselves so seriously, get dressed up, do a performance, put a,
yeah,
a dig at the press a little bit, have their staff a little uncomfortable because they're human beings.
yep.
They let their hair down and they were they were like any of us, which is wonderful. Question for you here. Many times in business, we deal with losing a project or not winning a project or having a bad situation go on. And it's like a lot of times people feel like giving up. You're in the world of hundreds of times a year in each of these different mega performances that you're doing. They could get a bad review, they could get a scathing review.
Hmm.
Share with us how that is dealt with. Maybe there's a particular review you remember and you go, "Oh my gosh." And how did people get through it? How to deal with rejection or at least very, very severe criticism.
Well, Wicked, it was not well received. When it started previews on Broadway, it was not well received by the critics. By the audience, however, they lived for it. One of my actors was having a bad, or what she felt was a bad vocal show. And she said, oh, this person on the internet who has taken it upon themselves with no vocal training to judge and put it out there what they thought of somebody's performance. And you do have to roll with it. We complain about it backstage. When I was working on the revival of 42nd Street, someone wrote an article for a fairly big publication about if you looked at a showgirl, one of the female ensemble, they're really ugly and
Oh,
they have so much makeup on that makes them look pretty. How do you write that? And the amount of pushback that person got, not only from the females that were working on Broadway, but the men and the crew. And it's like, how dare you? They are putting literally themselves in front of you and performing, and you're going to call them ugly because they're wearing makeup? There are trolls out there. There are people that have no training who've not been in the arena. And I think in business, when you're doing something, you may fail spectacularly, but there's going to be somebody out there that loves it. And I think if we as humans can reach out, like to you, Barry, if you did something in your business that I liked, I need to tell you that. Rather than if you did something customer service wise or whatever that I didn't,
mhm.
you need to hear that too. But we need to take the time to go, you know what? You stepped up. Your company stepped up. Bob in customer service rocked it. I think we give too much credit to the naysayers and to the haters because you can't please everybody. And you're going to fail and you're going to have somebody not like you. And that's on them. If you're putting out the best quality thing you can put out with integrity and honest heart and effort, I don't know if I could say this, but screw them. That's on them. That's not on you and your work.
You talked about the idea that Wicked in the beginning got bad reviews
Mhm.
from the so-called all-knowing critics. And that's something we have to realize in business. It's so easy for somebody to have some sort of an initial reaction and torpedo something you're doing that means so much to you or to your company. One closing question I have, Terry, for you. You've been doing this for a few decades. You've met many very famous people. You've helped people. You've seen successes, failures, successes again. What means the most to you? What is the thing that in your heart you go, this is what makes me proud. This is what inspires me to do this?
So I'm going to get a little philosophical with this answer. Back in early evolutionary development of Homo sapiens, we would put our mark on the wall. We'd put our handprint, we'd put dots. We would draw pictures of hunts, and we would tell each other stories. And in those stories, it was about where the best berries were, how to hunt, why the sun rose, deep philosophical questions that they were wrestling with then. And as those stories grew, it developed into ethical constructs and civilization constructs and religions and kept moving, and we kept telling each other stories. And to jump forward, what we're sending out in space to communicate is music, is story. And I am so grateful and take great pride in the fact that I am part of that human lineage of storytelling from our very beginnings to our distant future. I am one little blip in that line that makes us human. And if I, in my support of my actors, can affect one human being, then I've lived a good life. And the stories I've gotten from people that have seen productions I've worked on and how it affected them and their families, I got to be a part of that. And I am I am so grateful. And that's on my worst days when I remember that, I'm like, "Nope, not a bad life. I get to do that."
I I thank you today. Many things you've shared are really wonderful. The idea that it's not about perfect, the idea that you're going to get some bad reviews and you just keep moving on. The idea that something's not going to go right, you got to make a decision. You don't sit around beating each other up. Make a decision. We'll talk about it later, but we got to make sure the best we can that the show goes on, and once in a while it doesn't, and it may even be entertaining to the audience when the show doesn't go on. You're behind the scenes and you're involved with hundreds of actors every week that are out there performing. And as they perform well, you're feeling that ownership, that pride. You're so excited about it. That's what many of us do in our business lives because we're behind the scenes at our company. We're helping our customers. We're behind the scenes in their eyes, but we're making a difference. So today, Teri, thank you for making a difference with us.
Thank you.
I want all of us, as we look at these magnificent shows that Teri is involved in on Broadway, think about the people behind them, the people like Teri Pruitt, who are making sure that her actors, not the actors, her actors are engaged, they're excited, and they have pride. So until next time, thank you for joining us on Difference Talks. And Teri, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for joining us on Difference Talks. All of us at Labov are proud to celebrate great people with inspiring messages. Difference Talks was created, produced, engineered, and performed by the Labov team. Even the music is original. Contact us at labov.com to learn how to differentiate your brand and give your team a sense of significance and meaning.